I beat it. Good morning, everyone. Happy Hump Day to you. I hope you all are having a wonderful week thus far. I know that the weather has been kind of all over the place, but again, please be sure that you are continuing to stay safe and continue to adhere to the guidelines and the policies and procedures as it relates to Auntie Rona and Uncle Virus. Again, we want to help do our part and flatten the curve. So remember, if you must go outside, wear a mask, wear gloves, protect yourselves at all costs, protect your children, and just make sure that you all are continuing to stay safe because we need you. We really, really do. But today is Wednesday, May 27th, 2020, and we are going to be continuing with the fundamentals of math. So, in case you are watching this as a playback video, I started this fundamentals of math on yesterday, and I started with integers. Fundamentals of math are the foundational groundworks that you are going to need to be successful not only in your math GED exam or on your math GED exam rather, but you also may apply some of these fundamentals, the foundational groundworks in your science and your social studies GED exams as well. So I decided that I'm going to start this series in my English class because when you are an English teacher, you also teach science and social studies, and it's very important that you make sure that you get all of the foundational things down packed. And so, me also being a math teacher, I just figured let me go ahead and just start off with the groundwork and the fundamentals of math. So that way, when my students, get ready to take their exams, they can be fully equipped and prepared and ready to go. All right. So today we are going to talk about fractions. Fractions are everywhere. And when I mean everywhere, I mean everywhere. You can't get away from fractions. Um, it's just around us all the time from cooking with our recipes to, cars, how much oil you have to put in your car. You have to put in a fourth of oil, or how much gas do you have in your tank? I have one fourth um, tank of gas, or I'm three-fourths empty, or whatever the case may be. So, as it relates to your science and social studies exams for the GED, you may see these fractions or some or other ways that fractions can be used, such as decimals and percents, and we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. You will find it in the following ways. They can be used for measuring distances, genetics, which is with the Punnett square, and I can show you all what that is, and finding the percent of a population, and so much more. So those are the first three things that jumped off at the top of my head. But if you know any other ways that fractions can be used as it relates to your science and science and social studies GED exams, leave it in the comment section and let's have a discussion about it, okay? All right, so we're just going to go ahead and get started with the fundamentals of math, fractions, and I think this is going to be part one. Okay. Do 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 do. La 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 la. All right. So, exactly what is the definition of a fraction? Simply put, a fraction is a part to a whole. Is nothing more, is nothing less. And I also forgot to mention that fractions are nothing more than division problems. So again, as I stated yesterday, in order to be successful in higher math and beyond, you have to have the fundamentals, which are the foundations of math. You have to have those down pat. What I mean by that is you must have adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing down to a T. Okay. Again, either of those operational if either of those operational tools are not really your forte, or you find yourself, struggling in those, please use the resources that are available. Sometimes I may give them, Sometimes you may have to do research on your own, but it is up to you and it is your responsibility to study and to make sure that you are understanding how these things work. Okay. Now, as you can see here, I have two shapes and I'm going to make this as, as simple as I possibly can so that way you all can understand how fractions work. So this first shape over here is a circle. And I have divided this circle into 4 pieces, right? No big deal, no problem. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, hey, toolbar. So I'm going to put my toolbar up here. Now there are 4 pieces to this whole, right? So because there are 4 pieces, 4 is going to be my bottom number, is going to be what's called my denominator. Okay. Woo. I probably should have typed that out, but it's all right. All right. So that's going to be my denominator or my whole. So the denominator represents the whole pieces of the pie, of the pizza, or whatever it is that you're doing, okay? The number on top is going to represent the part. So that number is called the numerator. And excuse the handwriting. So the numerator is the part or a piece of, okay? Okay, so there we go. Now, let's just say this was some pizza, okay? That's a really thick slice of pizza, but nonetheless, all right? And matter of fact, this is a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut because I know they have 4, okay? And you just decided to take one bite or one piece of the pizza, okay? So that's the piece that you have broken off and you are going to eat it. That means you have just had 1/4 of the pizza. So you took one part, which is the part that you broke off and ate, and you are putting that over the whole, which was 4 slices. Okay. All right. So just keep in mind that when we're talking about fractions, we are simply talking about parts to a whole. Now, this can also go 2 ways. So it's very important that you are mindful of what questions are asking you to do. They may ask a question. You have 4 pieces of pizza. How many pieces were not eaten? Okay. Or were not touched, or how many pieces did you save, or how many pieces were left over, pieces of the pizza. Okay. So because we have this part right here that's been taken away, 1/4 of the pizza has been eaten. The other part, which is 1, 2, 3, 3/4 of the pizza are still intact. Okay. So 1/4 represents how much or how many pieces are gone. 3/4, and I'm going to try to write it over here somewhere. 3/4 of the pizza are still available. Okay. So the X's represent the pizza that is still available. Now, when we add these together, the goal is for us to have a whole pizza. Okay, so when I add 3 plus 1, that gives me 4, and the bottom numbers stay the same. And I'm going to get more in detail with that probably on tomorrow, or that actually may be a Freebie Friday video. By the way, I also do Freebie Friday videos. Students request certain concepts that I haven't gone over yet, or they may request something that they need a refresher on. So if you are interested in that, please leave your comment in the comment section, leave your topic there, and I'll be sure to do a video on it. Okay. So that answer is going to be 4/4 because I have 1, 2, 3, 4 full slices. Okay. And one of the 4 slices have already been eaten. 3/4 of the pieces are still there. Okay. So remember, making sure that you understand what it is that the question is asking you. That is very, very important. And again, I will get into fractions as it relates to the mixed operations of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. I'll get into those in more detail tomorrow. Okay. But today, I just wanted to do a short and quick breakdown of what fractions are and why are they important? Because they are. All right. So next over here, some people would look at this and call this an ice cube or an ice tray. That's fine. Some people may look at this as a candy bar, or some people may look at this as whatever it is that they want to look at it as. A carton of eggs. I don't know. You can use your imagination because again, we deal with fractions and we see fractions every single day. All right. So as you can see here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I have 10 pieces. So the 10 represents my whole because that's how much or that's how many pieces that I have all together. Okay. So again, the 10 is represented as my whole number or my denominator. Okay. So I'm going to put D for denominator. Okay. So if I wanted to, I don't know, say 1, 2, 3, 3 pieces of the chocolate or 3 eggs or 3 whatevers. It doesn't really matter. I know I'm taking 3 parts of the whole situation. Again, you can use your imagination of whatever it is that you want it to be. It can be brownies, it can be a piece of cake, it can be whatever it is that you want. Okay. But just know that you're taking 3 pieces. So because you're taking those three pieces, 3 out of 10. So those are my parts. Those are the pieces that I've taken. Okay. Now, what's going on with the other 7? It doesn't matter. Maybe you want to save those pieces for tomorrow, or maybe you want to do something else. But remember, 3 out of 10 suggests that these are the pieces that I've eaten, or I'm giving away, or I'm doing something with them. And I have a remainder of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I have 7 pieces left over. But what am I going to do with the 7? It really doesn't matter. Okay. So this represents what I've taken. Okay. The 7/10 represents how many pieces are still there. Okay. Or pieces of cake or pieces of chocolate or whatever. So hopefully, if you are watching this video, I hope that you see the difference between a part to a whole. Okay. So again, these things are going to be very important when we start adding in the operations of adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Okay, so I just want you to keep those things in mind for tomorrow. Okay. And to my student that is watching, if you have any questions at any given time, please feel free to ask. Okay. There's no such thing, as I always say, there's no such thing as a dumb question, except for the ones you don't ask. Okay. All right. So now I want to move on Now I'm going to move this down. I want to move on to equivalent fractions and simplifying fractions. When you are looking for equivalent fractions, you must make sure that you are looking for fractions that are equal to each other. The word equivalent means equal. So you want to make sure that you look for fractions that are equal. There is a plethora of ways to find out whether or not you have equivalent fractions. Okay, and one of those ways is called proportions. We'll get into that momentarily. Okay, simplifying fractions, you're simply reducing the fraction in its smallest form as possible. Okay, so again, when we simplify things, we're making them smaller, meaning that we are dividing. Okay, so when we add or multiply, you can look at it this way. When we add or multiply, we are growing. When we subtract or divide, we're making things smaller. Okay, so just keep those terminologies in mind because we will come back to revisit them. This is very important. You have to know, and I put in big bold letters, you have to know your multiplication and division in order to be successful with fractions. They play a key role when you are adding and subtracting fractions with unlike denominators. So again, if multiplication and division were not your strong suit, you're going to have to find some time and make that happen. Shout out to Clark Atlanta University. I did not go there, but I know a lot of people who did, and their motto is find a way or make one. So you're going to have to find the time or make the time to focus and discipline yourself in making sure that you know your multiplication and division. Otherwise, you will find that moving on into higher math is going to be challenging for you. Okay. So please keep in mind, I cannot stress enough the importance of finding time to study. And with Auntie Rona and Uncle Virus, what are you doing anyway? So please, even if it's 15 to 20 minutes every other day, you have to start somewhere. Do not despise humble beginnings or small beginnings. You have to start somewhere and then you can work your way up. All right. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of examples here. All right. Okay. So let's just say, for instance, I'm going to start off small and then I'm going to work my way up. I am going to start with the famous 1/2. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to list probably maybe 4 more fractions. And I want to see if you can catch the connection between the fractions. And again, I'm starting with 1/2. So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to stop right here simply because this is a pattern. So when you're dealing with equivalent fractions, you're actually dealing with patterns. So you have to make sure that you are recognizing the pattern. Okay. So at the top here, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No biggie, no issue, no problem. But at the bottom, I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So again, you have to know what's called multiples. When we learn how to count by twos, when we learn how to count by threes, fours, fives, sixes, sevens, eights, nines, 10s, 11s, and 12s, and anything beyond that, we are actually learning multiples. So for example, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 are multiples of 2. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20 are multiples of 4. And of course, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 are multiples of 10. So let me go ahead and type this. You have to know your multiples. Okay. Okay? You have to know your multiples. No other way around it. You got to know it. Here we go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write another fraction. Okay. Well, let me start. Before I write the other fraction, let me go here. Based on the pattern that you see, what will my next fraction be? If we are just looking at the pattern of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what comes after 5? 6. So that means my top number would be 6. So that means my bottom number will have to fall in line as the next succession in my multiples of 2. So my next multiple that comes after 10 would be 12. Patterns, again, play a very important role in higher math. They do. So they're very important that you know your multiples. And again, a multiple is simply products that are in consecutive order. Okay. Okay, so multiples are products that are in consecutive order. So very quickly, because I understand that the people that may be watching the playback, you're visual people, and I'm a visual person too. So I want to give you as many examples, clear cut and to the point as possible. So I'm going to start with my threes, okay? And I'm only going to do like maybe up to 5. Okay. Don't know why that always happens. All right. So I have 3. I have multiplication tables in 3s. So when I do this, when I answer all of them, it's going to say 3, 6, 9, 12, and 15. Okay, so I'm simply just answering these multiplication problems. The product, which are the answers to the multiplication problem, these are my multiples. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, blah, 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 blah. Those are my multiples. So what's in the box of what you see here are my multiples. All right. So multiples. All right. So again, you have to know your multiples in order to be successful with equivalent fractions. Now, with that being said, I am going to use another example so that you can figure out your multiples or what the equivalent fractions are. I'm going to make this one a little challenging. Okay, here we go. Uh, so what would my next fraction be? So remember, we are looking at finding a pattern. At the top, we're counting by threes. So we have 3, 6, And my next number should be the number 9. At the bottom, I'm counting by 5s. 5, 10. So my next number should be 15. Okay. And if I wanted to keep going, which I can, I would say 12 over 20. And then I would just say 15 over 25. Okay. All right. So my top fractions are counted in multiples of 3. My numerator. My denominator, I'm counting by 5s. Okay. So as you can see, knowing your multiples for equivalent fractions are very important. Now, what I want to do very, very quickly, I want to show you how you can check to see if you have two fractions that are equal to each other. Okay, so I'm going to move my toolbar back down here, and I'm going to open another page. And remember, if you have any questions, feel free at any time to ask. But if you're watching this as a playback video, leave your questions in the comment section. Okay. Proportions are simply fractions, two fractions that are equal to each other. That's really all proportions are. Proportions can help determine whether or not you have equal fractions. Uh-oh, didn't mean to do that. Okay, make sure I lock that in place because I didn't want it to move around. All right, so let's just say, for example, on your GED exam, more than likely this will be on the math part of it. They give you, and again, I'm going to start off with something light. They may ask you, is 2/3 equal to 4/6? They may ask you that question, or they may word it in such a way where you may have to recognize, is this a proportion? Okay, so just keep in mind when you are reading word problems, they're going to give you certain keywords and certain things to prompt you, okay, to prompt you to let you know what you have to do. Okay, so we have 2/3 is equal to 4/6. One of the ways that I tell my students how to figure it out is simply by looking at finding a pattern. Now, sometimes when you have two fractions that may be equal to each other or not equal to each other, it may be hard to find the pattern, especially if you're dealing with larger numbers. So I am going to give you a trick and a tip and a technique to help you. Okay. So what we're now going to do is we are going to use what's called cross multiplication. Okay, so again, knowing your multiplication is very, very important, and I cannot stress that enough. All right, so what you're going to do is, as it relates to cross multiplication, you're going to do exactly what it says to do. You're going to cross multiply. So when I cross multiply, what I'm simply doing is I am taking the top numerator of the first fraction and I am multiplying it by the denominator of the second fraction. So this is why they say cross. Okay. Now, when I multiply 2 times 6, that gives me 12. So now I'm going to do the same thing, but this time I am going to cross multiply my number, my numerator in the second fraction, multiply that by the denominator of the first fraction. So 3 times 4 is also 12. The goal is you want each side to equal 12. So because 12 is equal to 12, this lets me know that 2/3 is in fact equivalent to 4/6. So this is a trick, a technique that you can practice on and use, because when you get to algebra, you will see this again. When you have to solve one-step equations or two-step equations or inequalities. So again, math is very repetitious. They just present mathematical concepts to you in different ways, but it is your responsibility to make sure that you know the difference, okay? All right. So now I'm going to do another one, and this time I want to see what it is that you know. So I'm going to give you a fraction. Are these two fractions equal to each other, or are they proportionate? So whenever you see the word proportionate or proportion, this should automatically let you know, oh, I have two things that may be equal to each other. And that means I may have to solve by cross multiplication to determine whether or not they are equal fractions or not. Okay? So as always, we are going to start with cross multiplication. I'm going to multiply 1 times 7. That gives me 7. Then I'm going to multiply my 5 times my 2, and that's going to give me 10. The last time I checked, 10 is not equal to 7. They're different numbers. So because 10 is not equal to 7, that means this fraction is not proportionate, or they're not equal to each other. So they get a sad face because they are not equal. Whereas this fraction was equal. So you get a smiley face up here. We like smiley faces. Okay. So there's one more part of this that I want to show you, and then I am going to give an assignment, because that's just what I do. I give assignments. All right. So now that we've talked about equivalent fractions and proportions, now I want to jump into simplifying fractions. Okay. Again, the word simplify means to make smaller or to reduce. Okay. So keep that in mind. From time to time, I tell my students, from time to time, there will be times where math teachers will, give partial credit or let things slide, or, depending on an individual case by case basis. Well, I'm here to tell you, as a math teacher who's been doing this for quite a while and understanding how fractions work, it is best that you go ahead and simplify fractions when necessary. Okay, some fractions you won't be able to simplify or make smaller, and I will get into the reasons why momentarily. But just always simplify fractions. Always, truck, always. Okay. So now what I want to do is I am going to start with a fraction. Remember, I'm going to start off easy and then we're going to work our way up. So let's just say, for instance, you have added two fractions together and this was your answer, 10 over 12. Now I'm here to tell you that even though that is technically a correct answer, it is not the right answer simply because you can make that fraction smaller. How do we do that? Okay. In order to simplify fractions, you must find the greatest common factor. And I'm going to write it out here. Okay. Okay. I'm going to move this over just a little bit so that way you all can see it. All right. Now, in order to find fractions, you must find the GCF, or the greatest common factor. Now, I wrote it out this way for a reason, because I like to break stuff down and make it make sense. Actually, so we know that the greatest means the biggest. We know that. Okay. We also know that the word common means same. What in the world is a factor? So this is where you have to kind of know the math terminology. Factors are numbers that you multiply together. Okay, and again, sorry for my handwriting. Okay. Let me also say this. A lot of people get factors and multiples confused. Remember, a factor is a number that you multiply with another number to get a product. A product is the answer to a multiplication problem. Consecutive products that are aligned in order are multiples. Okay. If you didn't catch that, feel free to pause it and rewind. Okay. So this is again where knowing your multiplication and division. I cannot, I know I've said it about 20 times in this video, but I want to stress that because again, these are fundamentals of math. These are the basic math skills that you are going to need to be successful, not only in algebra and geometry. But again, if you are thinking about going off to college, and you will be taking some math classes there, I can tell you that right now, you still want to have that firm and solid foundation. And this is the foundation. It really is. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do, in just in case I say, well, I don't know my factors. I don't know my factors of 10 and 12. Okay. So now I'm going to type this. And I'm going to put it down here. All right. So factors of 10. What I like to do is, and this is what I tell people when they are starting off with simplifying fractions, okay? Because again, practice makes perfect. What you could do is you can write down all the numbers that if you multiply them together would give you 10. So I would say 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Those are the only numbers. You don't have to write 5 times 2 and 10 times 1 because multiplication is an operation where if you switch the numbers or transpose the numbers, your answer will still be the same. Okay? So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, basically. All right? So now I'm going to skip down and because I'm going to need some room here. And I am going to now write my factors of 12. So now always start with 1 because 1 times itself or the number itself will give you that same answer. So 1 times 12. And I have 2 times 6. Then I have 3 times 4. Okay. All right. All right. So I have factors of 10 and I have my factors of 12. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write them as a list. So that way you can see. So now I have 1, 2, 5, and 10. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. Now, again, if you are very quick-witted when it comes to your multiplication and division, you can breeze right on through all of this. However, again, if this is something that you have struggled with, or if this is something that you know or feel in your spirit you need more practice on, then stay, okay? Please make sure that you're taking your notes. A beautiful thing about the playback videos is that you can pause at any given moment. If you understand the concept, you can breeze and fast forward it. So that's why I create these videos. So that way you can learn at your own pace. Remember, nobody else is running this race but you. Okay, so you have to either take your time, grasp the concepts, make sure that you are comfortable and confident with these concepts because that's going to help you grow and go to the next level. I don't know who that was for, but if you're watching it, I pray you receive it. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I got my factors, check. Now I got to see what these two numbers have in common. So I see they have a 1 in common and I see they have a 2. That's the only numbers that are the same and that they have in common. Now, the biggest part, no pun intended, but the biggest part that people mess up on is the biggest. When you are simplifying fractions, you want to find the biggest number. When you are trying to find, as it relates to fractions, and like I said, we'll get into more details about this tomorrow. When you're adding or subtracting fractions with unlike denominators, you have to find what's called the least common denominator or the least common multiple. So that's why knowing the difference between factors and multiples are so important. Okay, now the biggest number that they have in common is 2. So now that means I am going to divide both numbers, 10 and 12 by 2. Now, when I do this, half of 10 gives me 5, and half of 12 gives me 6. Sorry, gave y'all the answer. Okay, so again, it's very important that you, number one, know the difference between factors and multiples. Because again, fractions, you can't get away from them. Fractions are definitely going to be on your math. I could tell you that. And again, you may also see them in your science exam, and you may also see them in your social studies exam. Okay. So just keep those things in mind, that you want to make sure that your foundation for math, the fundamentals of math, is down pat. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do now is I am going to go ahead and stop this video, simply because this is the part 1 of fractions. Part 2 is going to come tomorrow when we start adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing them. So this is going to be a 2-part series. Okay. We also are going to talk about percents and decimals and how to convert them, because again, you may see these different aspects on your science and social studies GED, and I don't want you to be caught out there. I want you to be prepared. I want you to be well equipped, and I want you to be confident that you are going to go in, take your math test, take your science exam, take your social studies exam, your English exam, and you're going to pass all of them in one big whop. That is what my prayer is for not only my students, but to anyone that is looking to get their GED and looking to obtain it. I want that for you. Okay. So again, very, very important that you make sure you have these fundamentals of math down pat. So now, again, I will be sending out a worksheet. I will be emailing a worksheet to my students, so that way they can work on it, and it will have the answer key as well on there. Also, I will leave the PDF link in my pinned comment section. So if you would like practice, you can download the PDF and you can print it. So that way you also can have those resources as well. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the screen share now, and my toolbar can come back down here. Thank you, toolbar. Really appreciate you. All right. So, Ms. Brittany, do you have any questions for me as it relates to your assignment?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Again, thank you so much for your consistency and just being faithful and coming to class. It is not unnoticed at all, and I just thank you for your dedication. I really, really appreciate it. So again, to anybody that's watching this playback, if you have any questions, leave it in the comment section, and I will be sure to answer them. But please be sure that you do your assignments and turn it in. I can check it, or the answer sheets will actually be um along with the assignment, so you can check your work yourself. You ain't got to turn it to me. But yes, so I'm going to go ahead and get this video uploaded for you all, and make it as quick as possible. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me. I really do appreciate you. We are winding down the month of May, and then after that, we have 2 more weeks, and then it is what it is. We all go on vacation, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, Ms. Hampton loves each and every one of you. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And until the next video, have a good hump day. Bye.